Hey, what's up, everyone? Renee here with a special announcement. Just letting everyone know that we here at the Movie Time podcast stand strong with the WGA and SAG-AFTRA during this tough and important time in the industry. Even though neither one of us are members of any of the unions, we want to make sure that we do our part to show our support and solidarity with those on the picket lines and those who are currently out of work. First and foremost, we are fans of film and cinema, and we're going to continue to show our love and passion of the works that are put forth by the true creators that make these movies possible for all of us to see. That said, we will continue to do our show as usual, but always ensure that we put more emphasis on the writers and actors involved in the works we talk about week to week. We will also continue to stay up to date on the strikes and make sure we do what we can to spread the word on how to help those affected. We have included links to special funds and ways to donate to ensure that those affected will, at the very least, get support to live while these strikes continue. We encourage you to do your research, and we will provide as much info as possible through the links provided. If you have any questions or have other ideas on how to further show support, by all means, please let us know through the comments. Thanks again for all of your support. But yeah, let's go into the Christopher Nolan, what some people are calling opus masterpiece. I'm seeing all of these words being thrown around online and all that. But yeah, Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, which is a subject matter that I am a little bit familiar with. Not so much because of what I learned in school, but because of stuff that I've learned outside of school, kind of like my own research growing up and all that. Not saying that I was obsessed with the A-bomb or anything of that case, but like sometimes I get into those modes of research, and especially when it came to the bombing of Hiroshima, because I always remember one of the few times I visited the United Nations was obviously with schools, with my school on school trips. And if you've ever visited the UN, especially around the time that I was growing up, you'll notice that there is a section in the UN that talks about the bombing of Hiroshima, and they have like artifacts from Japan and all that, and that always stuck in my head because of how absurd that there was an event like that happened in real life. So, of course, something like that stuck with me for a long time. So, of course, I did my own reading and research about how all that came about. But I wouldn't say I'm like an expert about Oppenheimer and the creation of such weapons of mass destruction, all that. So, of course, I was very much interested in this movie and how Nolan was going to portray this character and do his little JFK biopic spin on it all. And of course, knowing that this is Christopher Nolan, you're going to be expecting some sort of cinematic event here. I was not expecting to experience such a huge cinematic experience like I did with Oppenheimer. The movie at 3 hours, for the most part, didn't feel like 3 hours at all. It felt like the pacing was well done. It flowed really damn well, and it zoomed by. It really, for me, it kind of zoomed by. I love how the way I feel about the movie is that for the first half of the movie, you are really going through a kind of thrilling biopic of this character's journey, getting to that goal of creating this weapon that they've been like really like trying to produce and test out and all that. Then you have the major event, which is the first test that kind of like solidifies that success, right? And then the movie takes a quick turn into this horrific kind of emotional journey of the aftermath of such things. And I found myself depressed, sad, like kind of like having like stressed out basically because of like the kind of like political drama twist that the movie took, and the moral struggle that Oppenheimer had to go through with everything that's happening, the investigation of the communisms and all that, and kind of how the government trying to pin something on someone just for scapegoat reasons or whatever the case is. And then I love the conversation that he has with Einstein about you're eventually going to get an award because of all your achievements, but it's not going to be because of you. It's really going to be because of your country, like that. And that's their way of kind of blanketing the stuff that's happened, and trying to get the onus away from them, but then kind of like patting themselves on the back, like, yeah, like, we're proud that we were able to accomplish such things or whatever the case is. Brilliant directing, as to be expected from Nolan. Brilliant score by Ludwig Göransson, who, if you're familiar with The Mandalorian or Black Panther, my God,
Childish
and
Gambino's 4 albums,
right,
Community,
so damn good.
dude's a Tony away from an EGOT, and
Yeah,
crushed it here.
which is amazing. I mean, it was just so good all throughout. And it's interesting too because Nolan usually works with Hans Zimmer. So it was interesting to see him, use Ludwig, and I thought that was really great to see Ludwig produce a score. The cinematography, oh my God, it is a Hoyt van Hoytema. I love that guy's name because it's just such a great flowing name. Everything in this movie was just beautiful, beautifully shot, and all that. The acting was probably the most top-notch acting you'll get with such a huge cast. People who were in this movie that you didn't even know were in this movie, and they would show up even if it's just a 5-minute role.
God.
Holy cow. I was just like, it's like name dropping. It's like all of a sudden, bam,
Seriously.
bam, bam. I'm like, where are these people coming from? It kind of reminds me of the conversation you and I had about Wes Anderson, and how a lot of actors will, take a lesser salary just to work with Wes Anderson because Wes Anderson is a great filmmaker and storyteller, right? Nolan is now that same type of persona too, has been like that for a while, but I feel like even more so now. I feel like everyone was like, can I be in your movie? Oh, do you need that? Or maybe Chris will just ask someone randomly, hey, I have a role for you, do you mind, do you have like a weekend free? And they're just like, oh yeah, of course, I'll go out and join you on that production. It was just so amazing seeing all of these brilliant actors, old and new, in this film. For and I will say before I switch it off over to you, for a movie that didn't utilize any CG really, the effect that they had on on the bomb test, that being real. And you and I kind of joked about this before when we kind of read the headline that, oh, Christopher Nolan doesn't want to use CG, so he builds a real bomb to explode for a camera.
Created an A-bomb. Yeah.
And we were laughing at it. It was like, of course, Christopher Nolan would do something crazy like that. But did it really look great on film? Oh my gosh, that thing looked and the sound, the way how it just, the blast would go and everything's silent, but you just hear the breathing of everybody. And then how all of a sudden, like, the aftershock will bring in the sound and it kind of blasts in your ears and all that. Oh my God, just so good. Like, this is a testament of filmmaking at its best. And the 70 millimeter, you can understand why he wanted people to really see it this way, because it really takes full advantage of this type of camera usage and film work. Yeah, I'm so glad I went to see it in 70 millimeter, and it just really felt like old school cinema. Like I could tell I was watching film and not a digital projection. So it was nice to see the cigar burns like every now and then, or like the little hairlines that would pop up now and then. It's like it just felt like old school cinema. It was just so good. Now you saw it in IMAX, so I don't know if it felt that same way, because IMAX tends to be a little bit more cleaner than like a regular projection. But yeah, what was your overall feeling when you went to watch this movie?
It was very clear all throughout that this director is taking himself and the cinematography and the filming very seriously. Before we get into plot and what we liked and performances, etc., overall, it was an absolute masterpiece. Like, it was incredible, intense as hell.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what I expected, which is going to be explain part of my part of my feelings and thoughts about aspects of the movie. And there's certain things about it that I didn't enjoy necessarily. But I do want to start just overall absolutely amazing piece of cinema. I love history. I actually have been listening to the audiobook of the that this is based on. There's one biographer of Oppenheimer's who said this is the most accurate movie he's ever seen.
Mm,
And there's a lot of biopics out there. A lot of them play with facts and history, and a lot of them are very accurate. This one, it seems like to a T that there are not factual inaccuracies in the movie, or if there are, they're so few and far between or minimal that the actual story of this dude's life, it's the kind of thing you Google afterward and go, what's true and what's not? It's going to basically be true down the line.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, before we get into it, I do want to just say I absolutely think it is an amazing piece of work. My audience loved it. There were less applause than Barbie, but also a very different audience and a little bit more of that gut punch feeling that you get at a Nolan
Sure.
movie, where
Yeah.
people aren't leaving this theater going, "Woo, what a fun time!" Instead, like people really thinking about the fate of the world more so, which means it was as effective as if people were, gleefully clapping and giggling throughout a comedy, right? It did its
Right.
job very damn well.
Yeah. No, for
What was your theater experience like for this movie? I'm assuming it was full.
it was extremely full. I think it was at this point sold out when I went to see it. But again, it was the only theater there that had 70 millimeter, and I think a lot of people knew that that was the way to go watch it. But with Oppenheimer, it kind of haunts you after you see it, and it kind of like lingers around
Yeah.
so much. But by the time I got home last night, which was like 2 a.m, and something I recommend to you and to a lot of people is the Criterion Channel has a great documentary called The Day After Trinity. And it's a documentary about Oppenheimer and all that. And if you really want to know more about the people involved and really more of an account of Oppenheimer through the people that knew him, that is a great documentary to watch. I watched that last night. I was dead ass tired and I just went ahead and watched that because I was just such in that Oppenheimer kind of mindset, and it never escaped,
Yeah.
even watching Barbie
The cleanser
afterwards.
didn't do it. The chaser. Oh
No,
no.
no,
Yeah, that's the problem with the chaser concept is
yeah,
you're now dealing with, are we all going to die of nukes and have we murdered ourselves out of history? I
right,
similarly watched, I didn't watch that documentary, but I watched interviews with Oppenheimer afterward and did some diving on the
yeah.
history there, started the audiobook on the walk home, etc.
I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be doing that after watching this movie because it's one of those movies that kind of lends to more, intrigue on this character and just that time of America. And I think it's just an interesting part of our history. We obviously we talked briefly about the cinematic experience of it, kind of the the way it looked in 70 millimeter, the brilliant usage of that type of format and all that. You want to just dive into the performances because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the performances in this movie.
I think the story of this movie, if I'm boiling it down, when we just have like if we're gonna have a quick combo about it, what's not necessarily an elevator pitch, but what's
Yeah.
the takeaways?
Hmm.
It's the film editing. You can watch plenty of YouTube videos, I'm sure, breaking down every Nolan
Sure.
movie and how he does what he does, etc. I don't think that that's necessarily our place. The actual cultural takeaways for me are how he told this story and the characters involved. That cast is absolutely incredible. What brilliant casting for the lead. And also, are we
Oh,
on this show? Are we doing Cillian Murphy or is it Cillian? It's Cillian,
I
right?
it's Killian. That's how I always knew it
Just
as.
making
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, wow. Wow. The
This is
cheekbones were their own character
Oh my
in the
god.
movie. Let's be
And
very clear.
the hairline too. I mean, it's so pristine, but this is a career defining role. Like this really
Yeah,
like
this
this
dude isn't on
is
the front of the movie poster very often.
yeah.
He's in Dunkirk, his face is one of the big takeaways from the movie, like the way his character looked. Same face all throughout this movie. This like, I am shocked by the horrors of
Yeah.
war and what have I done? And he's stuck in between these. You could do a whole thing on it being a similar moral quandary of the two characters,
Mhm.
but how expressive that face is,
Yeah.
and just I would go and say Peaky Blinders is probably his. He's now a household name for a lot of people who weren't into. He did a lot more indie movies before and
Sure.
was more of an actor's actor. But damn, for cinema, this might be his magnum opus. His in the obituary, this is the first movie that they mention. We'll see, but however long from now, when we're looking back, this might be the top billed, movie in his repertoire.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
It's so good, so good, and yeah, he's. I mean, obviously, we are familiar with him because he's worked with Nolan so many times already in the past, which I always appreciate with Nolan. Again, we have those kind of directors that love working with the same people over and over again. Cillian has just been one of those guys that he's worked with constantly, like almost through all his movies. Um, but Robert Downey Jr. And I think for him being a standout here is important to note because I think me included, I was always curious and wondering now that he's not doing Iron Man anymore, how's his career gonna look like? Because every time I see him, I just think of Tony Stark. I just think of Iron Man because he's done that role for so damn long. Now this is a great kind of all right, I'm done with that part of my career. Here's my next step into something. And wow, his portrayal of Louis Strauss, just his performance overall was brilliant. It was so good. So good.
He had some monologues near the end that
Oh,
were like, give that dude a supporting actor nomination right
cringe-worthy
now.
monologues too. Cringe-worthy monologues.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's was part of what was interesting to me is the way that the movie became in some ways a parallel of their two stories, almost like an
Yeah,
Aaron Burr and Hamilton kind of
right.
concept. Like these characters who keep crossing paths and then end up
Hmm.
becoming essentially nemesis. Um, I didn't That's one of the things I didn't love about the movie. I wish they'd either set that up more earlier on as that being the dynamic there. But I did feel a little thrown when I go, oh, this is what we're doing. We're doing back and forth, showing these two
Hmm.
men being in similar places later in life without actually having a lot of, oh, here's when they really, when their bitter rivalry started, partially with this movie, and we can get into the editing and the way the story is told after we talk about cast, but
Yeah.
it's partially because you're cutting moments from the future, the past, current day, however you want to look at that, all throughout the movie. So that's maybe
Hmm.
part of why, and it was effective. So I'm not trying to say it didn't work at all, but I was surprised that Strauss became the second lead of the movie, you could say.
Right. Yeah.
Um, Matt Damon's up there, and his wife, Emily Blunt's character is up there.
Yeah.
There's other characters who kind of like take, they're the second lead for a chunk of the movie, or at least for
Hmm.
a chunk of the narrative, even if it's not in the same order. But by the end, it's kind of Robert Downey Jr. He would be the supporting actor nomination, I think.
Oh, for
This
sure.
might be a what's the movie Banshees situation where you have two or three people nominated for supporting. That could be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
But damn, if Cillian Murphy isn't winning Best Actor, I want to see who the competition is. We might have if Bernstein gets released this year, we might have a Bradley Cooper in there. We might have a few other uh, roles
Hmm.
that will deserve a spot. But if it's holy shit, it's so hard to even think about this movie without thinking of Cillian Murphy's face as
Oh,
Oppenheimer, let alone the performance. And it's a really subdued, highly intellectual character
yeah.
who's doing a lot of thinking, and characters are even complaining. And this is a thing in his real life where he's a very kind of some of the complaints people had about Obama, where he's so contemplative and he's not giving straight answers to questions that are as soundbitey.
Hmm.
It's much easier to do a character who has one-liners and just very compact little speeches. This
Yeah.
dude, you're seeing him do a lot of hand wringing, a lot of thinking, and to have it still be such an effective performance is incredible, and a testament to that casting and the skills of Cillian Murphy.
No, for sure. And I guess also because of how intellectual the character is and really how academic he is. Um it was kind of surprising to see how much of a womanizer he was too and how he got himself into a lot of these type of relationships. Which leads me to, first of all, this movie has two of my five crushes in Hollywood right now, and that is Emily Blunt, who you mentioned already before, and Florence Pugh. I mean, the relationship he had with Florence Pugh, who played Jean Tatlock in the movie, and unbelievable the the risk that they took in. I don't want to say risk, but at least the bravery in full on nudity for both of them, right? like
we didn't see
well,
Cillian Murphy's
we didn't
genitals,
see
did we?
we didn't see package, but I mean
Right,
he was pretty much sitting in the lounge chair without any
right.
clothes
And
on.
there's and some one time, one of my favorite moments, he's not in the lounge chair. He is in his interrogation
Oh my god,
scene
yeah, yeah,
when they transition from one place to
yeah,
another, and it's showing him in that mindset and how
yeah,
just vulnerable he is.
yeah,
Brilliant moment.
yeah,
Holy
and
shit. So that's one of those
also
times where it's like, this is actually effective nudity for storytelling, not
yeah,
just, oh, look at hot people being naked.
one
It was
thousand
brilliantly
percent,
done in my mind in that regard and warranted. And
yeah,
it didn't feel like they shoehorned that in after the fact. It was like, okay, here's why we're doing this, folks. And I wouldn't be surprised if both actors were like, oh, okay, this is necessary. Let's do
yeah,
it.
yeah, and also same scene in the interrogation in the kind of interrogation room as he's naked, and then all of a sudden changes to Florence Pugh riding him on the chair, but this is from the view of Emily Blunt because
Unbelievable.
now she can't get it out
Unbelievable.
of her
Yep.
head that they had an
And Florence
affair.
Pugh makes eye contact with
Oh
her
my
and
god.
us, and I
Yeah.
felt it, and I was like, no.
Very
Like, every
visceral.
human who's ever experienced any amount of jealousy definitely felt the
Yeah.
pang of it in
It
that
was
moment.
so
You know
visceral.
that feeling when your
Yeah.
mind's eye is, like, kind of, like, obsessed with this concept.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. But yeah, Florence Pugh's performance was so well done and so good in this movie. Again, someone who definitely has problems with reality and mental health and all that. Someone who just doesn't know what she wants and how they were, like you get into that moment where you have two people who are very toxic for each other. But, Oppenheimer, he loves to love and he loves to care for people, which is funny because the most common piece of feedback that I've read about Oppenheimer is that he has a great heart. And I think that's one of the narratives in the stories where it's like someone who has such a great heart was able to create such a monstrous thing that destroyed millions or destroyed thousands, right? That has such an impact to destroy life. But yet, this person in his own personal life had such a strong heart, like for people and in those around him, which it's just an interesting kind of dynamic there as far as characters are concerned. But yeah, Florence Pugh was great. Emily Blunt, a force to reckon with in this movie as the headstrong kind of wife there of his. I love that moment where Oppenheimer finds out that Jean took her life, and he decides to ride off into the forest by himself, and she finds him, and that's where she finds out for the first time that they had a meeting, and kind of they slept with each other, and she, in her moment of anger and frustration, she still knows to tell him he needs to snap out of it because people are depending on him to do what he has to do and get out of this funk that he's in because of this. Don't let this affect you, kind of thing. It was like, oh my God, I felt every moment of that. I was just like, that is, and again, that's a testament to the acting there.
seriously. The Emily Blunt character, I really loved her interrogation moment. She
Yeah.
definitely had some good lines in there,
Mm-hmm.
and I again, it's kind of similar to the Robert Downey Jr. thing. A lot of the issues I have with this movie were the order in which things happen,
Okay.
which the way he told it, I'm still impressed to take this movie and this story, put it over 3 hours, and yet it's jumping around the whole time, kind of like a Nolan movie can do, or a Quentin Tarantino, where it's non-linear,
Mm-hmm.
but instead it's like 1 minute here, and then we're jumping around so much. That said, the womanizing thing also caught me off guard, especially near the end. There was a mention to a third woman, which was supposed
Right.
to be kind of like not quite prestige, but like we're doing like a little like you didn't expect that, did you? Even though we
Right.
referenced it earlier,
Right.
a little bit of a M. Night Shyamalan thing. Um,
It's a twist.
but I wish they'd done a little bit more work, not just showing that like, oh, he had an affair with the love of his life, but like this dude's got swag. I
Yeah.
wish they developed that a little more earlier on. And then, and that's the womanizing in general. The Emily Blunt's character, though, showing, and this is a lot of movies and biopics nowadays are dealing with the great man concept, the great man of history.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a great example of this man affected the history of humankind, and they are the ones who are the authors of the future. And instead, there's, the line used to be behind every great man, there's a great woman. And this movie does a good job of showing the humanity of Oppenheimer and then showing the strength of Emily Blunt's character,
Yeah.
along with, I'll call it the weakness of Florence Pugh's character. The woman was going through some damn things,
Yeah.
and it's in my mind kind of a victim and a tragic character. Emily Blunt's character is also a victim of Oppenheimer's misdeeds, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
There's another we talked about not too long ago, another big biopic where it really delves into the misdeeds of the main character and the effect that had on their partner.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, this movie doesn't spend a ton of time in any given. You might have a little monologue or a scene that's 3-5 minutes maybe, but for the most part, it's jumping around so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I did love that before the movie was over, Emily Blunt got her moment where she just dabbed on the asshole prosecutors in that interrogation scene.
Yeah.
That was lovely.
Yeah. And the refusal to shake the hand of the guy who
Mhm.
he worked with that basically turncoated and like kind of just like threw him to the wolves, so to speak.
Do you know who that actor is?
Benny
I'm not
Safdie.
trying to put you on the
It's
spot.
it's
I
Benny
know.
Safdie. Yeah. Like
Oh,
how
having one of our
amazing
great
is that?
directors direct one of our other great directors as an actor in a story.
Yeah.
Oh,
How
that when I
crazy is
saw
that?
him and the moment, because there's so many. I don't know that you can actually talk about this movie. I think we might be talking about both at the same time, the editing and the acting,
Yeah.
along with everything else, the visual effects and the score. But the moment when Benny Safdie's character is putting on the sunscreen with the
Yeah.
sunglasses before the bomb goes off was, to me, my favorite moment of the entire movie. The bomb itself didn't love how they handled it. We'll get into it. That's probably going to be one of the big moments of this conversation.
Yeah.
My favorite moment where I go, holy shit, was that exact moment, because it's kind of showing like, and the Safdie brothers are really good at this, like the horrors of a normal thing.
Right.
It looks like he's a monster in like in a, not quite Frankenstein, but like in a horror movie, a Halloween movie of sorts. And he's putting on the sunscreen, it's like caking his face, and he's disfigured from it, and he's got these big giant goggles.
It's so funny.
And it's like a realistic image. Like these are just, this
Yeah.
guy's just putting on sunglasses to protect his eyes from the bomb, and he's putting on sunscreen. And one of my other favorite things about the Safdie brothers is that because that same actor is in Good Time and plays a similarly like physical performance of essentially like a weirdo looking dude. No
Yeah.
offense to him, he's a brilliant dude. I would be buddies with him. I'd love to grab a beer with him, but he looks kind of weird, right? Like
Yeah.
he's not going to be the leading man of a traditional rom-com, right? But to use that to effect is brilliant.
Yeah.
And that was my favorite moment when we're getting ready for the bomb before the bomb even drops.
Yeah. And I love the interaction he had with Jack Quaid also, who's in the car, because he's like, oh, yeah, do you want some of this? And he's like, no, the UV protection on the windshield will protect me. And he says, oh, what you gonna do when the glass breaks or something like that. Like I thought that was kind of funny.
The glass will protect you from the bomb. What will protect you from the glass?
From the glass. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like I thought that was really hilarious. Yeah. Hey, no, I'm not Ryan Reynolds, but I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with the Mint Mobile ads that he puts out there, whether it's on TV, YouTube, social media, or what have you. And I'm sure a lot of you are very, wondering and very skeptical that how good is Mint Mobile? Is it really worth all the hype and all the, huge discounts every month and all the promotions and stuff like that? Well, I was very much like you. And late last year, I decided to take the plunge and try it out myself because I was honestly tired of paying so much money every month on my cell phone bill. I was a huge long term Verizon customer, and I was paying $80 a month on my cell phone bill, which is ridiculous. Even given the fact that I'm not really working a regular job like I used to, so saving money is important to me. But of course, I don't want to sacrifice quality in my cell service, especially when it comes to data and all that. So I decided to give it a shot, and I have to say I am extremely pleased with the service I'm getting. I haven't noticed any drop in quality. And, for what I'm paying, I feel like I'm definitely getting more bang for my buck. And I want to be able to share that experience with you so that if you're in the same boat as I was, maybe it's time for you to give it a shot yourself. And right now, they have this amazing offer where you can sign up for them and you will be able to get 3 months unlimited data for $15 a month for your first 3 months. I mean, that is an insane discount. And I highly recommend you check it out and try it for yourself if you're looking for a change. Switching over from your cell, service is not going to be difficult. I did it in like it didn't take long at all to do it. As soon as I got the kit and my SIM card in the mail, I was able to switch it out, and bing bang boom, all said and done. If you're looking for a new phone and you're happening to maybe eyeing one of those new Google Pixel phones, they have a special offer where you could save $200 on a brand new phone and receive 6 months of free service when you purchase a device and 6 months of service. So right now, I think is a good time more than any to give this a shot for yourself. So check out the link I have especially provided for you in the description of this video, this episode here, and give Mint Mobile a shot. And if you do, let me know what you think about it, because I was, again, pleasantly surprised and very happy with how everything turned out. But I think overall, I'm just happy to be saving a lot of money every month on my cell phone bill. And I think you'll be happy too. So, Mint Mobile, check out the link in the description. And thanks for checking them out. Thanks, Mint Mobile. Hey everyone, just a quick message here that this episode is brought to you by a new shop that I just launched. That's right, popculture.shop is a new merch shop where you can not only find Low-Key Geek and eventually MovieTime merchandise, but you will find merchandise dedicated to some of the biggest things in pop culture at the moment. Whether it's movies, TV, video games, memes, or anything of the like, you'll find some of the homages to some of the biggest things that are happening currently at the time. You also eventually will find some cool retro throwbacks in here and there. The shop just launched, so bear with me. I'm filling in the inventory, but you'll find new stuff dropping every week. But to help celebrate the launch of this brand new merch shop, I'm giving all of you, the listeners, subscribers here at the Low-Key Geek channel, a nice little discount to check it out. So if you use the code LowKeyGeek at checkout, you'll get yourself a nice little 15% discount. So definitely check it out. This is another great way to help support the channel and show your love and support for everything that we do here. But it's also a brand new venture of my own, just going out into the retail market. So any support that you could throw our way would be greatly appreciated. So once again, that is Pop Couture, popculture.shop, popculture.shop, a shop for geeks who are chic. There's just so many brilliant performers that show up all throughout this movie. I'm just gonna call them off, as I'm just shocked that they showed up. Rami Malek showing up, I was not expecting to see him in this movie. David Desmalchin, who again, someone who I am so familiar with being in more the comedic type of roles, being in a pretty damn serious role in this one. Dane DeHaan, showing up there.
We don't see him enough.
No, we don't.
In the last 10 years, to me, one of the big tragedies that we haven't seen.
Yeah, I know.
Young man, he was going to be, to me, similar with Michael Pitt. As a young actor, this could be one of the great actors of all time,
Yeah.
and then just kind of falls off for a minute where we haven't seen him in very much. At some point, I even looked him up and just go, wait, why is there such a big gap in his
Yeah.
resume? Maybe he's going through stuff. I don't know. Sometimes our great actors have really weird personal lives, or they're going through
Sure.
things. Who knows? Maybe he's been painting. I don't know, but he's one of my absolute favorite actors. When I saw him, all I knew is I wish that this was a bigger role. But
Yeah.
damn, always good to see that man on the screen.
Yeah. It was so nice to see him back like that. Because again, I can't even remember the last time I saw him on screen. It might have been Spider-Man with freaking what's his name, Andrew Garfield. I think that's the last time personally for me I saw him in a movie. But and that was such a long time ago. But then you'll have Casey Affleck show up, and it's funny because they do one of those things where you don't see his face right away, but the minute you hear him speaking, I'm like, wait a minute, is that Casey Affleck? And then boom, it's Casey Affleck.
Things you talk about in film school, where
Yeah.
it's how do you introduce the superstar.
Yeah.
And in this case, sometimes it's like if it's a controversial superstar, what they're going through in their personal life,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And so sometimes you just boom, throw them out there. Other times you show them from behind, they turn around, you show them come out from a fog of
Yeah.
whatever. This one was really interesting because of what Casey Affleck's been through, especially obscuring
Yeah.
his face. And there's a moment where I go, did they edit this after the controversy? Because my assumption was they filmed it after. I go, did they do a thing where they like body doubled and aren't going to show his face because of whatever?
Right.
No, that's not what they did.
No.
Christopher Nolan isn't getting into that. I do think that they handled that kind of well, where they ease you into like, hey, you're about to see Casey Affleck in a movie,
Right.
and then it's been a while after like what do you call it, a low-key cancellation or something. Like, wasn't covered in the New York Times, but he hasn't had the roles that he had before in a while.
No,
So seeing
definitely
him,
not.
he's another one of those, a favorite actor that fell off, and that's for very different reasons. But that was interesting to see him.
Kenneth Branagh showing up, and again, Branagh is like, I feel like he's part of like new royalty in Hollywood, because like, you know, we also know him as a director. He is kind of he plays Perot in those like murder mystery movies and everything, but he is such a well-respected actor in Hollywood for such a long time. So every time he shows up, it's like a nice treat just to see him there in the movie. We have Alden Ehrenreich playing Richard Feynman.
Han Solo?
Yeah, we had Han Solo himself. Han Solo acting right next to Tony Stark, like for the most part. And I just thought that was like really, really fascinating to see. Jason Clarke, who was the main interrogator during the whole interrogation moments. A guy that you learn to hate very early because of his line questioning and all that. Josh Hartnett, he was a face that I was like, whoa, I haven't seen this face in forever.
He's in a Guy Ritchie movie. The new, was it Operation Fortune, something like that. Ruse de Guerre. I'm getting the title wrong, but he had a big role in that. And that was one of the first times I'd seen him in a while. I think he's in a Black Mirror episode, a recent
is that right?
one.
Okay.
But he's basically having a little moment. But I'm sure there's a lot of people who, if you missed either of those two properties, which they're not the most ubiquitous movies. This dude used to be the leading young man, like Heath Ledger era. It was those two are right up there for, cover of every magazine concept. Like, so seeing him have a comeback moment in his career is really nice.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we could keep just how stacked this movie is. We could just keep going.
I'm going to throw in two more.
Please.
I'm going to throw in Tom Conti as Einstein. It was one of those I had to look up during it, of like, wait, who's playing this dude?
Yep.
And then the president himself, Gary Oldman.
Oh yeah, how can we forget?
Almost unrecognizable, but he's also one of our best. He's doing Churchill a few years ago.
He has
fully putting on the prosthetics.
Yeah, he has that affect to his voice that no matter how he acts, you could pick it up. And the minute I heard him speak,
and gravel at the base of his register.
Yeah.
I heard the voice, I go, wait, who is that? And then we see it, I go, hell yes.
Yeah, I was like, fucking A. I'm like, now that you have Gary Oldman in this movie too, I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. It was
how
so
many
good.
Oscar nominations are in this cast? I'm sure someone did the math already.
Holy shit.
But damn, whenever you've got a dude of that quality just phoning it in for the cameo, and it's not the only little 3 to 5 minute role, these are some of the greatest actors in history,
Yeah.
and a chunk of them, and a lot of them are small roles. That's one of the things I love about having a great director, or an Asteroid City
Hmm.
concept. And similarly, both movies are dealing with, there's the bomb joke about in Asteroid City or whatever. They're also both where you're setting up a camp in New Mexico area,
Right in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
the Southwest. And I'm wondering to what degree I want to hear more stories, which we got after Asteroid City came out. And because actors aren't promoting, we might not hear these stories. But
Hmm.
I do want to hear at least some research on what went into that, if they really did, to what degree they built a town, and to what degree this was essentially an actors camp, similar to what we heard about Asteroid City. I want to hear a lot of stories, and watching before the movies were released, but promotional stuff where they're interviewing the cast of Barbie, talking about what it was like to work together. There's some
Yeah.
lovely moments from that press tour. I'm going to do a little more diving on what that was like, because can you just imagine going to the cafeteria and you've got that group of people around you?
Hmm.
Holy cow.
Well, knowing Christopher Nolan, I'm sure he built everything from the ground up for a lot of this movie. That town, I'm sure he built straight up, just like how Wes Anderson built that town in Spain and everything. I'll close out with more names here just to close things out. Matthew Modine, James Remar. I mean, like, forget it. Like, a lot of these well-known people, the minute they step on screen, you know right away. Like, holy shit, you got this guy in here too? Who else are you missing? But yeah, it's and everyone did their job the way they
You
should
mentioned
have done
Damon
it.
already, right? I know you rattled off some names earlier on,
Yeah. Oh
but
yeah, we talked about Matt
that was
Damon
another
before. Yeah.
huge. Okay, that was just another
Yeah.
huge role to where, and I'm not the biggest Matt Damon stan. I think he's done amazing work. There's
Hmm.
times where it's less impressive, where he's doing more get the paycheck. This was one where it's like that was a really good casting and a good
Yeah.
performance from him. Of it wasn't a heavy lifting on the emotional aspect of the role, but it was a perfect. That's exactly what you wanted that character to be and do throughout the movie.
Well, you know the story behind him and taking this role, right? Did you hear him talk about
No,
it? He said
no.
he was at that point where he wanted to take a break from acting, and he was talking to his wife
Hmm.
about it. And then Christopher Nolan calls him to ask him about this movie, and he's like, and then Christopher Nolan calls. So I guess that break will be put on hold because I have to do this movie.
Also, little shout out to the Casey Affleck Matt Damon reunion since Ocean's
Hell
11.
yeah, that's right.
Um,
Yeah,
when they're both playing the military guys with similar outfits, I would
that's right.
love this to just be a little parallel universe of that. And
Yeah,
there's some like espionage aspect to it. Anyway, that's
yeah,
obviously absurd. Did you mention he's been a big indie dude, and he's had big roles in real films too, or like more popular films. But David Krumholtz, who played the kind of his larger friend, the guy who meets on the train, and they even make a
yeah.
joke about his size
Hmm.
early on. I don't remember if you mentioned it, but that was another one where he's done like, and also I always get him confused with Jake Johnson from
Oh
New
yeah,
Girl.
yeah.
Their faces are very similar, and to where there's a moment in life where I wasn't double checking, and I just always thought it was just a weight loss thing back and forth.
That's funny.
But this actor has done both. But he was a young actor in the early Santa Claus movies, the Tim Allen
Yeah,
ones.
that's right.
He's been a
Hmm.
mainstay in Hollywood, but he's rarely, if ever, the front of the movie poster guy. But I
Yeah.
love seeing him, and I think he did a great job with this role.
No, absolutely. Another random one to name too is Tony Goldwyn, who has been in the industry for a very long time. I mean, people who are familiar with the movie Ghost, he was the baddie in Ghost and all that. So it was nice to see him in the interrogation room as well.
You
Um,
mean the president of Scandal? Are you not a Scandal head, Renee? Or what are you talking?
apparently,
That's
I'm
not going to be
not.
your go-to. I love it. Yeah,
um,
he's another one of those, and it was a perfect role for him.
yeah,
That's exactly the character he should be playing in this movie,
yeah,
and
and
hit
yeah.
it out of the park.
Again, it's like name drop, name drop, name drop. I mean, it's just
I can go
everywhere
through the
you look.
list. I'm not going to keep naming, but holy shit, it just doesn't stop.
It doesn't. It really
Um,
doesn't.
we we definitely hit the main ones, I think.
Yeah.
Overall, of those, before we move on, but were there any that you were more impressed by or surprised by? Because these are all people who, or even disappointed by. These are all people who we know
Mhm.
that they're accomplished, and that's why they're cast in this movie. You
Yeah.
probably could have gotten an even bigger slate of actors, or people who are maybe even more famous, and he just said no. I don't know if you thought there was any miscasting or anything that you're particularly surprised by.
Not really. I mean, I again, I felt everyone who was cast in their roles played the roles exactly the way they should have, and exactly, I'm sure, what was asked of them, and everyone was in it, all in on it. I think if there was any one person that like surprised me outside of Cillian Murphy, because he is the main standout. Because again, you don't really see him as the leading man in a lot of these movies that he's in. Just Hartnett. It was just so great, and to get reminded
Yeah,
on how good of
that's a
an
good
actor
one.
he is. And now he's in his later years in life. How it's not so much of
Still
a
looks good
focus.
though.
Oh my God, no! Don't get me
He
wrong.
he looks great.
He's a good-looking dude, but that's not the main focus of what his career is. Like, not like how it was before, where he was like the heartthrob, right?
Right, Team B, yeah, Leo
Yeah,
DiCaprio vibe. Yeah,
yeah. So it was just nice to see him, really just focusing more on the acting. And again, it just shows you, like, especially under like a great director like Nolan, how a person like that can be a great actor. And it was just nice to see that. You can't talk about Oppenheimer without talking about special effects, especially because
yeah,
the majority of the movie is leading up to this one event, and that is the big explosion of the test of the bomb right there, the A bomb. And I think a lot of people are going to be talking about this moment because again, again, that's the expectation, right? This is what people are probably going to go to the movies to want to see. And I've already seen some feedback about it online. I've saw some people comment about it in my out of theater reaction on the channel, and how, although impressive, it's not as impressive as if he decided to go the CG route. Because if you've seen like the actual footage of the test, yeah, it's this humongous mushroom cloud craziness that happens, right? Now, you don't exactly get that same magnitude, but I'm sorry, knowing that he did this all practically,
yeah.
it was still very effective. And it was the fact that he was able to get some of that look down and some of that moment captured on screen. Plus you played with the sound during that moment too, where the minute the explosion goes off, everything is silent except for like the breathing, the panting, the anticipation, of the awe that everyone had as they're watching this. And then as kind of like almost like an aftershock hitting you with the sound later on, because that's just how it works too. Isn't it lights faster than sound? So you will see the flash first before the sound hits you and all that. And then when it does, it really freaking hits you and you're just like, oh my God. And then you have kind of like aftershocks after that too. For me, it was very effective, especially leading up to that moment. And it was as impactful as I think it would have been if it was a CG recreation. How did you feel about that moment? And we could talk about any other kind of effects, because like it once that moment happens, there's one other moment that happens after the fact that is very effects driven, edited driven, and I guess one of the more horrific moments of the movie too, that we could talk about after this. But what were your thoughts on all that?
I think that this movie hyped the bomb scene and the production of it. It's one of the first
Sure.
articles people see when they're thinking about this movie. It's not necessarily the crux of the film, like the most important thing that you're taking away from it,
Hmm.
but it is the moment of this dude's life that defines him and how he is defined by society afterward.
Yeah.
I don't hate that the movie didn't make this a movie that ends with the bomb scene and they all walk away. His story is so much bigger than that and it's deeper than that. And I'm glad that they made that not necessarily the central focus of the movie. But nonetheless, if you're talking about a movie where someone sets the home run record in baseball, or like in I, Tonya, the triple axle or something like that, just
Right.
like this is the moment of this person, you're going to want to make it. I don't want to shit on it. It was practical effects. I don't know what all went into it. I know that it was an effective scene, and if I didn't go into it with this like, there's gonna be a nuke, then I would have probably been, oh wow, they did a really good job with that. When it went quiet and they amplified the dramatic reactions to the bomb without it being something where I'm like, because a lot of people are in awe, and it's really hard to communicate how amazing something is if their face is.
Mm-hmm.
When you see people like watching fireworks, you're not getting the feeling of watching fireworks. They did a really good job amping you up for it. They're doing a full countdown. And there's not a lot of ways that you can actually communicate to an audience what it would feel like to be out there, because it's such like an astronomical event. I'm probably misusing astronomical, but you know what I mean, like such a big event. You can't really capture that on screen, but there are things that movies have done. I'm thinking of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm thinking of a lot of movies where there's a moment, a bomb drop, or even like a metaphorical bomb drop where it's not actually a bomb. But you can make the screen go totally white. You can make the sound so intense that people are like kind of shaken. He kind of does the opposite and he makes it minimal. And to me, I didn't love that. And I also didn't love that I could hear the people in the theater while the bomb's supposed to be going off. And people were quiet and respectful, thank goodness. Because if there was someone talking on a cell phone or something, it would have ruined the fucking movie, which Nolan is a theater purist. And this is where I'm going to take a little shot at that. I love that he and Scorsese are purists. Great for them. They write really good think pieces on how important cinema is, and they're not wrong. But there's going to be a showing, and there probably was yesterday, where someone's phone goes off during that moment. It's going to be the worst fucking moment that the theater has ever had in movie history, especially if their ringtone is fart noises or something like that. Like everyone's going to laugh and be so like this nervous tension, and it's going to be like, come on, like you can't have like for that moment of this major movie. Sure, the silence was very effective, and I'm very glad that my theater was respectful in that moment and nothing went wrong. I was bothered by it. I was not as impressed as if he had done, which Nolan can do. We know what it felt like the bank robbery scene in Dark Knight or Inception when the war sound is happening all throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good at that. And he was inverting expectations and maybe said there's no way to even explain it. I'm just going to let people see it and not really feel it. And also, there's something interesting about the bomb in a random desert in the middle of nowhere versus what it's like to drop it in a city. That's a very different story too.
Sure.
And so maybe people there were even a little underwhelmed. They're like, "Oh yeah, that's going to kill about a couple 100,000 people," but it was just like a big light in the sky, a lot of smoke, and then it kind of went away. I don't know, but I'm sure they were shook to their core imagining what it would be like in the city. But the actual visual, maybe they wanted to minimize it. And I'm kind of glad they didn't show Hiroshima and Nagasaki on the day of,
Yeah.
because that would have been a nightmarish film moment. But what's interesting to me is he again inverts expectations. He's showing those when that's happening, he's showing Cillian Murphy waiting by the phone saying they haven't called yet. I thought they would call. And then they hear about it on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And then Matt Damon calls him and gives him the little congratulations. It was a successful operation. It does do if his intention was to de-emphasize the actual bomb and to show we don't want to show and glorify the horrors of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. We want to leave it more to the imagination. And we want to show that this man is in his head about these events. He wasn't actually there.
Yeah.
I do think it's essentially a smart choice if you want to tell the story of the mental journey and the moral journey of this character. But I went into it thinking this was a movie about a bomb, and it was not a movie about a bomb at all. And the blockbuster fan in me wanted there to be more bomb. To me, the most effective moment telling about the experience of the bomb was when he's having visions afterward and panic attacks, and he's seeing people and things explode. That to me was like, oh, you got through what that may have felt like more, the intensity of it. I understand him taking the air out of the room and not actually showing the magnitude of this thing and not glorifying it, instead showing more the moral ramifications and fallout. I didn't know I was signing up for a drama, a psychological drama, and a courtroom drama when I was going to this movie, Christopher Nolan. I wish that the marketing had been a little bit clear that this was not going to be, and partially my fault. I avoided every trailer. In fact, twice I walked out of the theater when the trailer was happening. Another time I just closed my ears and looked down. Maybe they did try to warn me. Nonetheless, the poster is an explosion. I saw that one. I know the story of the bomb and its effect on history. Listened to entire podcasts about the nuclear, like leading up to Trinity, and then all of the moments since then of nuclear history. I was thinking that the bomb might be a little bit of a bigger deal the way it was in history in this movie. That's my gripe with this movie. That's why I actually rated it lower than Barbie.
I find it extremely interesting that that bothered you as much as it did.
Interesting is a way to say that you're bothered that I was bothered. You could be more direct.
Sure.
You think it's a dumb take. You think
I
I'm
do
wrong.
think it's a dumb take,
You
and
disagree.
I think it's also a dumb
That's
take
fine.
when people comment that, oh, it was just all hype leading up to that moment and it was okay. You know, it's like I think we are, because of cinema today, we are so accustomed to the extravaganza of special effects. Again, this is a very common conversation you and I have had recently about how the action is overtaking a lot of these movies and taking away from the story. Because more people are interested and fascinated more with the action bits instead of like the slow moving story bits and all that.
Yeah.
I hand it to Nolan for not going that route. You know, just be like, I'm focusing full on story, but I'm also giving you a different type of feeling when something like this happens. The whole focus was not really on the explosion, but more of the reaction of the people seeing such a monumental thing happening in front of them.
I understand.
I put myself in their
That's what the movie
shoes.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I put myself in their shoes. Like if I was there, like I probably would not have believed what I'm seeing in front of my eyes, you know, and all that. And I probably would have been reacting to like one of the many or of any of the 50 people that were watching this happening in front of them. Now, like you, I'm also very glad they didn't have to glorify what happened during the bombing of Hiroshima or Nagasaki, you know, because that is very unnecessary. If it was another director who was, you know, really focused on the action and kind of like like the extravaganza of like, you know, special effects, I'm pretty sure we would have seen something like that. Or they
Or
would have
Tarantino
done,
would have shown them bombing the A bomb in Berlin and
right,
killing Hitler and landing on his head or something.
right, or something like that. Yeah. Or they would have shown like the whole thing like kind of like dropping, and then just before it
Right.
explodes, they cut. You know, for like a dramatic effect or whatever the case, and then they'll show like an aftermath of maybe the scientists going back to the location and seeing the devastation or whatever. But
The natural disaster version of that story is wild to me. Like when they like a geostorm or some
yeah,
absurd, like where they try to show the giant waves of the ocean or
right,
the Statue of Liberty drowning kind of thing. Like that version of this movie would be bonkers as
right,
hell. Like it
right,
would be unsettling, and I'd probably throw up at some point.
sure. But the to bring up to piggyback on what you brought up, which is the second part that I said, like when it involves special effects that I thought was very effective for me, was when he goes to that kind of rally to give that speech, and he's really feeling the effects of the aftermath of everything happening, where he's giving kind of like the speech is like, I'm proud of what we did or whatever the case is, and the crowd is standing up cheering, but then it cuts to a person screaming, and then it cuts out, and then now you're seeing him seeing these visions of, you know, people kind of like with their faces kind of tearing away or melting away. He steps on like an ash of like a body figure and all that. Like this is where it becomes horror, like horror inducing. And you're seeing like what looked like someone who was just, you know, in glee and cheering to all of a sudden pure on tears of devastation and everything. The couple
Reminds me
making
of
out.
in Blonde at
Mhm.
Marilyn Monroe's movie premiere when she's going having an episode and people
Yes.
are like applauding and screaming, and
Yes.
you're watching their face kind of melt and like be
Right.
nightmare figures.
Right.
I w- I know what you're saying in that regard, and I that's why I thought that scene was so effective. I wish that this movie had become a psychological horror movie. I think I would have actually enjoyed it more if they didn't just barely dive into that. Or there's a moment when he's thinking about the bomb, and in the
Mhm.
boardroom, the thing goes to white, and he's seeing like bright white light cover everything, and he's
Mhm.
taking it with him. I wish they'd kind of shown the meltdown version of this movie, which maybe that's too dramatized, and that's
Mhm.
not necessarily what happened. But I just feel like they didn't do enough in that regard. They did enough for me to feel tense and for
Mhm.
me to, like, feel the moral dilemma, and if that's what the movie's about, and it's really hard to tell a dramatic story about a moral dilemma through special effects, then I think they did a pretty good job, but even some of those took me out of it to where I'm in my head about the bomb scene going like, "Oh, what's gonna happen?" And then I felt and my guess is it's not like anybody applauded. My guess is a lot of people in the audience were maybe not even disappointed, but just like, okay, he did a he did a good job showing what that would look like. But even the scene when he's in that the meeting where they're talking about he's essentially on trial without being on trial.
Mhm.
Um
The
and the
kangaroo
room is
trial.
covered in a bright yeah. Which shout out to his character Scarecrow in Dark Knight, who also was doing trials similar.
That's
Sorry.
true. That is
Um
very true. Yeah.
the when that room is covered in light, it felt like like it felt like when a movie is overly stylized and it takes you out of the moment. And I'm going, oh, I see what Christopher Nolan is doing here. He's trying to make me feel this thing.
Mhm.
And I didn't actually experience it necessarily the way he intended for me to. That might just be me, but I really like a Safdie brothers movie where they just like really get in your head and twist around and like mess you up with that if they do it. But this one kind of felt like he would dip his toe in it without going all the way. And I wish that he wasn't half stepping into the showing the bomb
Mhm.
and showing the psychological horrors of Oppenheimer afterward. It was intense, but it didn't fuck me up. Instead, to me, the big takeaway was the moral dilemma that he faced and
Mhm.
what his beliefs were, and him being haunted by the quandary of his life and his legacy, but not actually haunted like a horror movie, like the way I wish that it was more in my face.
Mhm.
That's just me, and I'm mainly the problem here, which we always talk about. We always talk about the problem when you don't like a movie is often expectations.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
If I'd gone into this thinking this was just going to be a psychological drama of a dude who happened to be the inventor of the A bomb, I think I would have appreciated it much more. If I got into it thinking of it as like a Blue Jasmine or a Tar tour de force of acting, then I may have actually enjoyed it more of a story of someone going through something and a
Mhm.
psychological journey. I think I would have appreciated more if I'd known, and maybe I should have watched the trailer or looked more into the movie going into it. It's honestly, I'm not even trying to say that this is the fault of the movie. It is an incredible, incredible film. I just wish that we had. I think I would have enjoyed it more, and the things I didn't enjoy about it were can mainly be boiled down to that because everything else about the movie was pitch perfect. And on a second watch, now that I know what to expect, I might change my review and say it's 5.5 stars as opposed to 4.5. I don't know, but that's my overall. If I'm going to go into my qualms with the movie, that's why I feel this way.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, I mean, again, it's not just you. Like I am seeing a lot of kind of discord referring to the same things that you're feeling as well. I'm also seeing a lot of people saying that the third act was very slow and very like you had all this momentum going into the big event and then it just kind of bottomed out afterwards. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do agree that there were
Neither do
moments
I.
that kind of felt dragged a little bit. Like it was a little bit too like how much longer are we going to focus in this interrogation room? Like I felt like there was maybe a little bit too much of that. But it didn't bother me or take me out of the movie so much that I'm just like, oh, here we go, another bad third act or something like that. Like for me, it was fine. Everyone takes away
I'm
things differently, so
I'm excited to go again, honestly, because I think that will. I actually have a ticket for an hour from now.
Oh,
I think that I'll actually appreciate it, which I don't know why I do this to myself, but I'm gonna go through it again, and I think I'll appreciate it more
yeah.
with my expectations having been corrected of what the movie's focused on. Because
Hmm.
I do like a good acting tour de force psychological journey film, and
Hmm.
I know that it was effective at that. I just felt like there was a couple things that I was going into it expecting that I didn't get from it, and
Sure.
I'm like you're saying, I'm sure a lot of folks feel that way.
Yeah.
We might have a similar question as we did with Barbie, just to kind of bookend the Barbenheimer convo again. But what folks will the people who want a simpler movie be disappointed by this? Will it go over
Right.
their heads? Will they say, "I thought this was going to be a movie about World War II or whatever"? In Barbie, they're like, "I just thought this was going to be a fun old campy romp at the theater," and instead they got something much deeper. I had my expectations were lower for Barbie and exceeded, and that's why I gave it 5. And the inverse with Oppenheimer, where I actually expected it to be
Hmm.
more of a spectacle. I don't know. Actually, it's essentially the opposite, but I didn't. It was flipped for me on what I was looking for and how far they went into it.
Right.
But that's to me the story of my Barbenheimer 2-day experience and why I ended up with the scores I did.
Yeah. But again, great scores for both. I mean, it kind of shows you the pedigree
Yeah,
and quality of
yeah.
the movies, you know?
Best weekend in movie history. Are you kidding me? 4.5 and 5 being the top 2,
My God,
and
for
then we
two
recently had
movies,
Mission
yeah,
Impossible 7. Yeah,
yeah,
not a bad. Yeah, I don't. I'm not. These, again, these are complaints. Like I'm looking for things of like, why
oh
didn't I only
sure,
give it 5?
yeah,
If someone had heard me only say the last word, they'd be like, "What? You gave it a 2 out of 5? What the hell?" No, this is a near perfect movie. I just was expecting 5 out of 5, perfect, everything I
yeah,
wanted happening and coming to life. Um, and that is the movie that we got. But I think this is a better movie than what I wanted out of it. Whereas more, oh hell yeah, bro, that was sick. Like Inglorious Bastards was supposed to end with a giant, super super violent scene.
yeah.
I think if this movie had been that way, I would have been like, "What the fuck did
That
Christopher
would have,
Nolan
yeah,
just do?"
that would feel
That would have
so out
sucked.
of nowhere. It's
It
just like,
ends with the bomb, and then they high five and cheer, and he's like, "All right, time to go about my life." That's my story,
that,
and that's
yeah,
where I was in 1945.
yeah. You see him like in a log cabin somewhere, just telling a story, and that was the
And
story of the A
Greg
bomb.
goes, "Badass."
Yeah,
Yeah, that would have sucked.
like you're the man. Oh my God, that would have been so crazy.